officials have decided there will be no federal charges for the 6 Baltimore cops involved in the death of 25-year-old Freddie Gray. The Justice Department announced the decision on Tuesday, but did not offer an explanation. It was in April of 2015 when the officers handcuffed and dragged Freddie Gray into a police transport van. He died of a broken neck he suffered while riding unrestrained in that van. His death sparked days of unrest in Baltimore. Now, all 6 officers were charged by prosecutor Marilyn Mosby. 3 were acquitted, and the state dropped the other cases. But next month, public trials will be held for the 5 of the officers to determine whether they keep their jobs with Baltimore's police department. Joining me via FaceTime from Baltimore is William Billy Murphy, the attorney for the Gray family. Billy, I don't know if anyone actually expected the Department of Justice to file civil rights charges because of their unwillingness to do so in previous cases, and also, as former Attorney General Eric Holder said, the high standard that must be met when it comes to civil rights violations.
Yes, that's true. And good morning, Roland. And it's nice to be back. It is true that the expectations were low. But what I find disturbing about the whole thing is that we're getting ready to have public trials of all 5 of these officers in terms of disciplinary proceedings conducted by the police department. And it is rumored that one of the officers is actually cooperating with the investigation. And to put it the way I heard it, he came clean. Now, why would you announce that you are not investigating these police on the eve of those hearings? Somebody hasn't been paying attention, or there's a certain indifference to this prosecution that settled in from the beginning. There are things about this I really don't understand.
Well, and to your point, if you wait until after these discipline trials, things may come out in that could aid your federal investigation.
Well, that's correct. And they claim to have been thorough in their approach. And this is the furthest thing from thorough. Who would not want to see the outcome of a public set of 4 disciplinary trials where one officer is not being charged with any discipline because he may have been cooperating? Who wouldn't want to see that if you're a prosecutor? So they could say, I did it. I confess. Please forgive me. Unlikely. But what if that happened after they've decided not to prosecute this man? Mm-hmm. So it's a very, very puzzling turn of events. And I don't know what we call the Sessions factor. I just don't know the extent to which his new attitude about these things and Trump's new attitude about these things is playing a role. Now, many of these people in Main Justice are career people who cannot be fired by this administration except for cause. So I don't know what to think. Now, the other thing that's curious, Roland, is that I know a good bit about this case. I've been involved in it from the beginning. No one's reached out to me to say, what do you know? Tell us everything, or anything of that nature. That's odd. If there was a civil lawyer in any other prosecution who had the knowledge about this case that I do, they would come to me. They would come to that lawyer. What's the downside? The other thing is they did this in secret. So they announced publicly at the end that they didn't find anything. They want to talk to the parents, or they wanted to before this became public, but the Sun papers in Baltimore beat them to it. And why care so much to talk to folk who know stuff and not talk to them until it's all over? I just don't get it.
All right, Attorney Billy Murphy, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
Spencer, as Eric Holder said, that it is such a high standard to prosecute for civil rights violations. Right. It is as if these cops consistently, not just in Baltimore, are getting away with murder.
Right, that's absolutely right. And this accountability piece is key. You know, we can talk about structural reforms, but holding individual officers accountable is key. And it really doesn't help when the Attorney General makes political statements and basically says, hey, we need to err more on the side and give these cops more leeway, and the president says things like, you know, hit folks in the car.
It's putting too much stress on the officers.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so we don't know the full legitimacy of this decision in terms of DOJ. There's kind of a credibility question because politics are at play. We don't know whether or not to trust it.
And again, we saw, Angela, where we had in the Obama Justice Department an unwillingness to prosecute cases. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, when I moderated the town hall at Congressional Black Caucus a couple of years ago, she said DOJ should take some chances when it comes to prosecuting some of these cases, and not just go, well, we don't think we can, get a conviction, so we're not even going to try.
Well, I mean, I think the American people deserve to see some consistency from the state and from the federal government on these issues. And I even think police officers need to see some more consistency in terms of what's expected of them. And we keep talking about train the officers, and, they need sensitivity training, but even training and not having a consistent punishment or assistant way to deliberate the conflict just creates a lot of mismessaging, and it continues to develop these racial tensions that we're experiencing.
Yeah, Greg, because at the end of the day, if you don't have any accountability, people don't believe the system is protecting its citizens.
That's exactly right. We've got to change this paradigm, and we have these conversations about being surprised or bemused. It's clear. There's a sliding scale on the value of human life in America, and black people are at the bottom of that sliding scale. Right. In Minnesota, when the white woman is shot, the police chief resigns, the Somali cat is immediately suspended. What we're seeing is different lives mean different value. That's why Jeff Sessions was never going to quit. This is his dream job. He is a white supremacist, and he is advancing white supremacy. When the Obama administration put their consent decree together, it was August last year, they didn't think they were going to win this election. Now that Sessions is in the House, oh no, it's not just a signal. He released that. They released that report yesterday to send a message. This public trial is going to be very different. And guess what? When the cops finally confess, as Brother Billy says, I'm wondering why. Don't wonder why, brother. We need now some steel in our spines and stop acting like this is a surprise. We know what this is.
And Spencer, at the end of the day, when we see case after case, I mean, you look at the case of Flager in the Scott case in South Carolina. Right. He pleaded to civil rights charges, but again, he was acquitted in criminal.
Right. And so how are we going to move forward in terms of this stuff? How are we going to hold these folks accountable? As Greg gets to, this notion is, black life. It has value, and folks aren't recognizing it. Something else we've talked about before is these police unions, right? What can we do to basically hold the police unions accountable? I think they have a lot of influence here in terms of the process, and I think they are slowing things down.
Well, of course, because again, they are there to protect their folks, and that's where, Angela, when it comes to those contracts, those city contracts, why they matter. Because that's where it was happening. We saw in San Antonio, where they wanted to put more accountability in the budget. They say, oh, fine, give us a massive pay raise if you want to make us accountable.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it goes the gamut from A to Z, and we just got to keep picking and fighting and continuing to address these issues from a holistic standpoint.
Well, again, for the people who believe Black Lives Matter has no purpose, this is why.
That's right.
This is why, and we need other folks to step up because they've been too silent. And what's happening with these police officers, whether it's the cop in Utah who went after a white nurse,
that's right,
or whether what happened to Freddie Gray, when you have no accountability, these cops will continue doing what they're doing.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no.
That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.